I certainly want to thank the IAFF for inviting me today, and I personally want to thank President Schaeferberger for giving me the easiest topic, changing the culture in the fire service. It's like turning the Titanic around in the Charles River, it's great to be here on the topic, and certainly one that's near and dear to all of us. Pat hit on the labor management relationship. I'm very blessed to be in a situation where I have two great partners in this endeavor. I have my boss, Mayor Martin Walsh, who's been mayor, just finished his first term, who in his first term has committed over $100 million in capital expenditure for the Boston Fire Department. We haven't seen that kind of expenditure in this department in 20 years with the prior administration. He's a cancer survivor himself, and he certainly is a big advocate for everything we're doing around the topic. My second partner is President Local 718, Richie Paris. I couldn't do what I do without his support and his friendship, and I truly mean friendship. He truly is a labor leader and gets what needs to be done, even at the expense sometimes of political capital. So I want to thank Richie. Talk about political capital just for a minute. Political action matters. We went through 20 years of torture under a city administration that did not care about the health and wellness of firefighters. Local 718, under the leadership of Richie Paris, along with guidance and tutelage from the late Mike Mullane and PFFM President Eddie Kelly at the time, went out on a limb and endorsed Martin Walsh for mayor in 2013. 13 candidates in a race. They went out, the first public employee union to come out and endorse them, and we are reaping those benefits today. We learned a lot in that 20-year period of time, and probably the most important topic we learned was the fact that our members are dying at an exponential rate to occupational cancer. Since 1990, we've lost over 190 Boston firefighters to an occupational cancer. And I believe that number is artificially low because of the fact that I cannot track our retirees who are outside the 5-year look back in our presumptive legislation. But I think that number is artificially low at this time. So Richard Paris, the president of 718, myself, once I was appointed to the commissioner's position, sat down and discussed how best we're going to change the culture in the Boston Fire Department to combat this epidemic. And when you look at the period of time, and it was never so stark as it was in 2014. 2014, I think a lot of you folks remember, we had two tragic line-of-duty deaths on Beacon Street in the Back Bay section of Boston. In 2014, we also lost 4 members to occupational cancer. Virtually went unnoticed, except for the people in the fire service. Our brothers and sisters in the fire service noticed it, but no one else did. The public didn't notice it. 3 of those members were active, and one was just recently retired. So it was a very tough year for us. We lost 2 members in line of duty, and then we lost 4 members to occupational cancer. We knew we had to change. Those 20 years of torture, where I truly do not want to relive, and I'm sure there's people out in this, and locals out in this audience today that are going through probably very similar battles. But labor and management, this is the topic, that labor and management should be able to find common ground. This is the topic. You should be able to find common ground around this and work together to solve it. There's no silver bullet here, for sure. There is no silver bullet to this issue. As we listen to the presenters all day today, it's a multifaceted approach that we all need to take seriously, and we all need to make the difference. Cultural change doesn't come easy. So when we discussed what we needed to do to actually bring about that change, we decided to launch a video campaign. I believe a lot of folks in this room have watched our first cancer video. It highlighted 3 members of our department who were going through the throes of cancer in various stages. One of those members, Mark Matthews, has succumbed to his cancer. Richie and I visited him the day before he passed. He asked his wife to leave the room and said, "Please don't let my death be in vain. Tell the members to wear their gear. Tell them to keep their mask on. Tell them to do what they need to do, clean their gear." That's impactful when you're sitting with a member of your department who is in the last days of his life, or hours of his life, and that was his concern. So the first video, the intent of the first video was to basically scare people, bring the attention to what's going on, heighten their awareness, let them see firsthand from members of this department what's going on in their lives because they're battling this cancer. Who's going to be left behind? Because cultural change, as we all know, doesn't come easy. It's not an easy process to change culture in the fire service. So that first video, the intent was to put it right out in front of everybody. This is what you need to know. This is what's happening. Then we chose to do a second video, and that dealt with best practices. We had one of our captains who's survived, he's a cancer survivor, went through a significant colon cancer, and he talks about, in that video, best practices on the fire ground. So now we got their attention, and now we're showing them what they can do for best practices. We've done 2 additional videos. One of them I'm going to show you a little bit, but the third video, if you will, is a day in the life of Glenn Preston, Boston firefighter who is battling a significant cancer right now. He's 42 years old. He has 4 kids under 10. And it basically walks through what is going on in his life. I encourage you all to look at it, watch it. We have established a website. You'll see it in a little bit, takenosmoke.org. It is truly impactful. It's emotional. It has people's attention. And then the fourth video, which you'll see in just a brief minute or two, deals with, we call it Fighting Back. It highlights 4 or 5 of our firefighters and what they're going through right now in their battle with cancer. They talk about it pretty in plain speak. They talk about how it's been disruptive in their lives and so on. All of this and all of what we've done is to help all of you help change the cultural mindset. There's an awful lot of personal responsibility comes with this topic. Some people don't like to hear that. Management has a role in this to make sure you have the best equipment, that you get in physicals, that you have the best apparatus, firehouses, which I consider probably, just because we're dealing with it, firehouses in my mind are nothing but cancer breeding grounds. Years of exposure from diesel exhaust before the recapturing systems came on board. The fact that we brought all these gear back to the firehouses after all these years. The average age of Boston Firehouse is 76 years old. One has been built in over 35 years. So the personal responsibility component is the toughest part. Management has their role. Labor certainly has their role to make sure management is doing what they can to help prevent this and deter what is going on. But it comes down to individual firefighters. It comes down to every one of you in this room worrying about yourselves and doing what's right for you and your family, your significant other, your spouse, your husband, your wife, your children, grandchildren. That's where rubber meets the road. It's that personal responsibility component that you just can't delegate. You just can't give it up and say no. We're trying and working hard in Boston now where we have, and bringing the leadership on board. I think probably the most important rank in the fire service right now that's going to make the change occur is at the company level, the lieutenant and captains at the company level. To take a vested interest in your members. If your group is 3 or 4 members, make sure you take a vested interest in them. If you're a captain, in the case in Boston, you're in charge of a company, you have 20 members to worry about. Take a vested interest in them. So when you're on the fire scene, you're not taking smoke needlessly. You wouldn't let one of your brother or sister firefighters crawl into a hole in the floor or work on an unstable roof. Why are you going to let them take smoke needlessly? Why? It doesn't make sense. The issue is going to kill us. It just doesn't kill us immediately. It's going to kill us 10, 15, 20, 25 years down the road. That's the difference. You'd like to think that company officers, chief officers, take that type of responsibility for their members. And depending on your leadership style, I prefer the sugar and spice type leadership, where you basically get people to change, let them know that you really care about them, that you're concerned about their well-being. But every once in a while, you got to break that bat out. I mean, in Boston, the biggest challenge we face right now, which is changing, believe me, it's changing moving in the right direction, is the sense of invincibility some of the young firefighters and mid-career firefighters have. In Boston, because of the legislative hiring process I deal with, we haven't hired a non-veteran in probably 15 years, since 9/11, probably around 2004 or so. So we've hired all veterans. And I'd say 50% of them or more combat veterans. They've survived Iraq, they've survived Afghanistan. The smoke ain't gonna kill me. The IADs didn't. The sniper didn't. The smoke's not gonna kill me. That's the wrestling point that we're dealing with. We're seeing the early stage firefighters, because of an active change we're doing at the academy, training them. It's that mid-career kid. It's a kid between, I'd say, 8 to 15 years on the job is the toughest nut to crack. Because they all want to be here. They all want to look like they've been here since 1969. They all want to look like that big smoke eater. They want to look like they're the biggest and the toughest, and they're the ones who can do it the best. But that's the toughest nut to crack. The older firefighters, surprisingly, adapt pretty well, because they have seen their friends die. At those numbers of 190 plus, everybody's known multiple people, multiple friends, people on the company, people in the firehouse, people in the district. They've witnessed it. And it's funny, when you get a little older, mortality kind of sets in, and you start thinking, well, I want to be around for a little bit. You know what I mean? So they've adapted, and they've been good leaders for us. They're pushing the kids, that mid-career kid. They're pushing them, making sure they're wearing a mask. Ideally, you want it to come down at the company level where everybody's watching out for each other, much like we do with any structural hazard. There's no reason why we should be in any environment unless we're fully bunkered up and protected. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. It's really that simple, that you need people to start saying, hey, Billy, put your mask on. Let's get upwind. Let's get to the side. Because, I have no degree in any medical field. I am a basic EMT, and very basic at that. But it makes sense to me that if we reduce the chronic exposure time, if we can cut that in half from what we're used to, say 10, 15 years ago, if we can cut that in half so people are more cognizant on the fire ground, they're staying out of the smoke plumes, they're upwind, not downwind, if they're working on different tactics, that they're fully bunkered and protected, if we could reduce that by 50%, logic would tell me we could probably reduce our cancer rate by 50%. It's that educational component that's going to make the difference, that people understand it. In that video I mentioned to you about what Glenn Preston talks about, and I encourage you to, it's too long to show here today, but I encourage you to go on our website and look at it. His oncologist talks about what happens when you ingest smoke. inhaled smoke, dermal absorption. He brings you through how it enters the system, transfers in the lower lungs or the lungs into the bloodstream, ends up at the cell level, and how the mutations start. So I'd encourage you to watch that, but the change in culture starts at the top, but you cannot exclude the fact that there's a lot of personal responsibility in this, and I think the education around the firefighters, making sure they understand what's going on, the level of risk they're involved in, that they truly comprehend it, people will start to change behavior. It's that simple. If I could, can I just show the video, please?
Today we added new faces to this wall behind me. These guys are dying way too young. There's too many of them. They shouldn't be dying at 52, 53 years old, and they are. That bothers me that these guys aren't here anymore, that they weren't able to hang around a little bit longer for their families. Our job is dangerous, but the hidden danger of our job is getting us.
We call this wall the cancer wall. It's a reminder of my brothers and sisters who have gone through what I'm going through.
Firefighters have very high risk for occupational cancers from their exposures on the job. The past several years, we've seen a lot of firefighters in the late 30s, early 40s come down with certain cancers that typically we see in people in the 50s and late 60s.
A lot of guys got it. A lot of guys walking around don't know they got it and probably do have it.
And I realized I had two little bumps right behind my clavicle. I remember pushing on it, squeezing, and no pain. Now, my wife happens to be a registered nurse. She felt the bumps. Her eyes opened up wide. She looked at me and said, "You need to call tomorrow." I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Testicular cancer is a little different. They do not biopsy, they just pull your testicle right out, and then they biopsy.
I was 35 when I got diagnosed. All I could think about was dying young.
The cancer's taking a little bit more out of me. Every 3 weeks I go in for scans. Every 3 weeks I go in for chemo.
We don't want to see this. I don't ever want to see it. Unfortunately, we will.
There's a lot of firefighters' pictures that are on walls all across union halls in America and all across fire departments in America that lost their life due to cancer-related illness. I personally know myself, since I've been the mayor, 3 or 4 folks that have died.
We've had over 190 Boston firefighters succumb to occupational cancer since 1990.
My own brother, who has 31 years in the job, just came down with cancer.
No pain, no signal, nothing. The oncologist and my urologist told me that bladder cancer is a common cancer for firefighters.
You don't think it's gonna happen when you're this young, and hopefully it doesn't.
I was more fearful for my wife than I was for myself. Already I was feeling my mortality.
They're telling me that it's terminal, that it's incurable. I'm learning to accept it. I have cancer, but it doesn't have me. I just hope I stick around a little bit longer for my kids.
I'll never forget my first fire right out of the academy. One of the guys said, "Oh, don't put your mask on yet. Save it till you get to the fire." I said, "Okay." For a week, every time you take a shower, your pores open up and you can smell the smoke. You blow your nose for a couple of days later and that's all you have is black coming out of you. I never thought of it back then, but I think of it now. Man, what was that stuff doing to my insides?
When there's smoke, there's cancer. I really want firefighters to remember that. Exposure to particulates within smoke can cause cellular changes. These cancer-causing chemicals travel into the bloodstream, set up in different organ systems, cause DNA damage, mutations, abnormal cell growth, and cancer develops.
As soon as you can see 2 feet in front of you, you take your mask off and go to work. Well, that's probably one of the most dangerous times because it's floating around and you let your guard down. The smoke is loaded with carcinogens. It's not conducive to life, smoke.
There was a fire in a power plant in 2002 in South Boston where we had 9 alarms and over 200 Boston firefighters responded. Over 50 of those members have developed a significant cancer, cardiac issue, or lung disease, and 15 have succumbed to their exposure. Mark Matthews, Billy Foley, Kevin McNiff were all at that fire, as well as Glenn Preston. Glenn, 40 years old, 4 young children under 8. It was his first significant fire.
The chemicals that were involved in that fire, the carcinogenics that were being given off, it was like you were working on an oil dike. Whatever was burning, mineral oil or whatever, it just wouldn't go out with water. I'd never seen smoke like it. in your mouth, in your eyes, in your ears, in your nose. Unfortunately, the mask we had back then wouldn't stay secure to our face because of the oil coming down our face. So we took a beating.
We're working with Dana-Farber to identify the risks to the members that responded to that fire and try to get them into early screening and testing to hopefully catch something in its incipient stage.
I really do believe that that fire is why John's up in that wall, why I'm sitting here, and why Matthews is up in that wall, why Frankie Flynn's no longer here. That fire is, in my opinion, where we all got cancer. But I went right back to the firehouse with that gear I had and put it on the next fire I went to, and used that gear for quite a while before we finally put it out of service.
The dirtier your equipment was, the more work it appeared that you did, and the more macho you were. You come back, you smell like smoke, you don't jump in the shower right away, you don't wash your clothes, and your bunker gear just sat with the smoke and the soot on it.
Everyone thinks they're invincible. After almost 32 years, I find out I'm not so invincible. Someone asked me one time, "You have any regrets about becoming a firefighter?" I said, no regrets at all. I'd do it again. But what I would do, and I tell them this, is I'd keep my mask on more than I did.
Before Mark passed, he told me, Rich, tell the guys, wear their face piece, clean their bunker gear. If he could do it all over again, he would.
Firefighting is an inherently dangerous job, and we are going to be exposed, and we are going to be in risky environments. We can reduce the chronic exposure to smoke and soot. It's taking that personal responsibility upon yourself to make sure you don't take smoke needlessly, that you're protected at all times in that hostile environment.
Boston Fire Department is fighting back against cancer.
Yeah, it just feels great that the department is investing in our safety.
They're doing a lot more to save us and save the future firefighters.
Health and safety of our members is of utmost importance, if not the most important thing we do on a day-to-day basis.
We want to make sure that there is life after the fire department.
We have to do more to make sure we protect our firefighters. Really looking at how do we make sure that this job is as safe as it can be, both while they're doing their job and then when they're not doing their job back at the firehouses. We need to make sure we have the best technology. We can't have a ladder truck pulling to a scene and breaking down.
We've been able to go out and buy 23 new engine companies for the city of Boston. Each one of them is coming with a 30-gallon foam bladder, which will give us significant capability on the fire ground, so firefighters aren't up close and personal being exposed needlessly. Car fires and dumpster fires use that foam and stay away from the smoke. Reduce that chronic exposure time and protect yourselves.
The new equipment we have seems to be doing that a lot better than what we used to have. Certainly, when I first got on the job, the equipment we had then was a jacket and a pair of pants. Now we have the jumper gear, we have the boots, we have everything.
The goal of having better bunker gear and having better SCBAs is to reduce the amount of time that we're being exposed. We have 45-minute bottles now, which help a great deal when we're doing overhaul. It gives us a little bit of extra time to be on air. We want to be able to protect the membership as much as we possibly can from the dangers that they're facing.
If it's going to keep those chemicals away from your body, that's great.
Our fire department's not changing. Our identity is not changing. But our approach to health and safety is changing.
We're really starting to see the cultural change. Firefighters are going to fires now, they're more cognizant of their environments, they're keeping their masks on, they clean themselves when they come back, they're washing their bunker gear, and they're following all the different tactical changes we've made.
I did go for a physical every year, and that's how it was originally spotted. That was a come-to-God moment.
We really need firefighters to get comprehensive physical exams on an annual basis. The checklist that we use is a form that they bring to their primary care physician to get these aggressive screening tests at an early stage. The prognosis of catching cancers early in firefighters is excellent. There are many firefighters in Boston working today who feel blessed because they took part in our physical exams.
I think every time I go back to the doctors and they tell me I'm cancer-free, it's like a new day.
Compared to what I felt like back then, this feels great.
This could happen to any of us, and just try and be safe.
Wash your hoods, wash your bunker gear, wash your personal gear. If you notice anything abnormal that wasn't there before, regardless of whether you're feeling symptoms or not, go get it checked out.
Early detection is best. There's so many cures out there for so many cancers that were a death sentence before, now they're not.
You can beat cancer. I did it, living proof of it. You gotta have a little levity with it too. You can't let it sink you down and make you depressed. There's a lot of nicknames for me in the firehouse having one testicle. OB, one ball, and I roll with it.
What I've learned in 33 years as a firefighter is that you tend to develop a sense of invincibility. I'm here to caution you on that. The toxins and carcinogens that are produced by fire don't care about your sense of invincibility. They will attack, you will not see them, and eventually you will be diagnosed and you'll end up spending 30 years in a firehouse and yet only get 2 years in your beach house. Think about your wife, your children, your significant other, because that's the one that matters the most. It's about reaching retirement and enjoying your family, because you've truly earned it. I hope you found that informative. We certainly appreciate every member who participated in the video. It was difficult to watch them talk about what's going on in their lives. And for them to step forward, they're gonna make a difference. The people who participate in all our videos, they're the true heroes. They're the ones who are gonna make that difference. Just a couple things, what we've done in Boston, just on, when you look at where we were, that 20-year period, we had fire trucks that didn't have brakes. I think you all know that story. We had firehouses, like I said to you, in my opinion, were nothing but breeding grounds for cancer. We're on the upswing. I mentioned Mayor Walsh. He's over $100 million he's committed to us in capital expenditure in his first term, which has done remarkable things. We are going to probably change out our entire fleet in the next 18 months. About 90% of our fleet is going to be completely changed. We talked about, they talk about the new engine companies. We just purchased 23 new engine companies. They all have foam capability, 30-gallon foam bladders. We're seeing that make a difference on the fire ground. Think about it for a minute. What's worth dying for in a dumpster? Nothing. Car fire, nothing. Car fire is nothing but a plastic box. It's not worth dying for. So encouraging people, as long as access is available to, this foam system on the engines is pretty simplistic. It's the Foam Pro system. You press a button, you get instant foam through any of the discharge outlets. So if you don't have an access issue, you should be able to get that piece within proximity of that dumpster or car fire. Now, certainly in car fires, you got to check, you got to make sure that pop the hood, pop the trunk, make sure you got no victims. Back it up and hit it with foam. Company officers are telling me it's cutting the extinguishment time down by 50%. That quick, and no one's up close and personal. No one's taking smoke needlessly. Dumpsters, it's real simple. Fill it with foam. If it runs off, fill it again. I don't see a reason to be overhauling a dumpster. So, and we've had great success. We've used it in a lot of structure fires too, where we're actually knocking down fire pretty quickly. So we're really experimenting with it at the structural level. Some hard, if you will, hard to extinguish defensive operations where we're, outside applying foam to actually bring that other component of the extinguishment process to the table, that smothering effect, and it's working. Another innovative thing we're doing is industrial cleaning in the firehouses. So I've spoken about this a little bit, and we kind of hit a little bit of a snag. We put it out to bid, and the prices came in kind of crazy on us, and we couldn't find a general contractor who wanted to take on the project. So what we're doing is we're retooling, we're sending things back out to bid, and we're going to act as our own general contractor. And the thought is we're going to move companies out of their firehouse, come in and industrial clean the house. What's that mean? Air handling systems, ventilation systems. We're going to paint all permeable wall coverings, ceiling tiles. Everything's going to get replaced. All the, if you will, soft tissue, couches, mattresses, everything's getting tossed. We're going to paint. We're going to seal the firehouses with ceiling paint. And then refurnish the house and then bring the members back. So we're hoping that buys us some time as we try to replace the firehouses we have going on right now. We have 2 projects, 2 brand new firehouses underway right now. The construction phase is not started. They're fully funded. Each project is about $24 million. significant. We have one firehouse right now that's underway, Engine 50 in Charlestown, which, depending on which spark you listen to, is supposedly the oldest firehouse, the oldest continuous use lot for a firehouse. The firehouse itself goes back to 1900. I was over visiting it the other day. It's been completely gutted, and we're going to incorporate Paul Erickson's hot, warm, cold design into that house the best we can with an existing structure. And we have another complete renovation going to be happening to one of our historical houses, Engine 33 and Ladder 15, which I think everybody knows that's going to take place in FY20. So we got a lot of things going on around the firehouses, but we're hoping the industrial cleaning concept and process will buy us time. So we get the houses cleaned up, we get rid of all the toxins and carcinogenics that have been left behind and get them back into a livable environment until we get to that point of replacing more houses and renovating. So that's going on. We are working with Jeff Burgess. We got a recruit class coming in at 60 in a couple weeks. We're going to sit with them, and they're going to be part of that cohort study. I'm really encouraged by that as far as they follow these young firefighters throughout their 30-year career. They'll see the difference if there's a change in their DNA and RNA and all those things that really matter as far as trying to predetermine cancer. So we got a lot of things going on, and we're working with Dana-Farber. They talked about the site power plant fire in the video. We had a town hall meeting, if you will, of all the members we could identify who've been at that fire, active and retired. We had them do a health survey. We got the results of the health survey. Of the active members who were at the fire, 77% participated. Of the retirees, over 66% participated. And now Dana-Farber is tailoring, if you will, testing processes around them individually. So we're partnering with Dana-Farber. Dana-Farber is right in our backyard, so why not use them? So we got a lot of things going on. And I just like to say thank you to the IAFF president for inviting me today. Certainly General Secretary Kelly and my dear friend, President Richie Paris in the background there, my true partner on the day-to-day operations of how we're moving this ball down the road. So thank you.